All right. Well, welcome everybody into our first episode here on the Flea Flicker Fancast here at the Overt Sports Network. We're very excited to have you. I, of course, have my co host, Mr. Carson Schubert, and as well as I have our other co host, David, who are going to join us. My name is Steggy. I am also Steggy Stories on all the socials. So, yeah, very excited to have you. Our first show here on the network where we're going to go over the divisional matchups for this week. We'll talk everything pro football here. We're going to go through the matchups, talk about our thoughts, what we expect to see this weekend, and hopefully have some fun dialogue. The first item up for discussion is going to be the Jaguars at the Chiefs. Currently, we've got the Chiefs favored at 8.5. Carson, I'm going to throw it over to you first. How are you feeling about this Chiefs-Jags matchup?
Yeah, I think everybody's counting out the Jaguars probably in the game. I think, and I'm not saying the Jaguars will win this game, but I think it could be a lot closer than people think. And I think that Doug Peterson is a veteran head coach, and he knows what Andy Reid likes to do, and I think he's going to be prepared for that. But ultimately, I don't think the Jaguars have enough on the defensive side to compete with what the Chiefs will bring. I think their secondary is still in question, in my opinion, the Jacksonville secondary. So I would probably lean Chiefs still, but I think it could be, a pretty good game. Maybe seeing the Chiefs win by, 10, 14, maybe points, which I think is still a pretty good game. Better than the San Francisco Seattle second half of last week, but we'll talk. Or the Dallas Tampa Bay game is probably better comparison.
Oh,
But
ugly. It was ugly.
but no,
Yeah.
I think the Chiefs will get it done, but I think we might get a few eyebrows raised at the performance from Jacksonville, and um, we'll see if they can make it interesting on Sunday.
Yeah, David, what do you think? You think think the Chiefs are running away with this one, or do you think Lawrence and ETN have a chance?
I think the only thing the Jaguars are going to get out of this game is experience, because the Chiefs are just going to run away with this thing, and this is it. Jacksonville is on a high right now for that comeback, which came back down to bad coaching. But I'm sorry, but their season is going to end. I mean, it's the Chiefs, Pat Mahomes.
Yeah.
I met Patrick Mahomes' dad one time, by the way.
Oh, Patrick Mahomes Sr.
Yes, that is correct. Former pitcher for the Minnesota Twins, by the way.
That's right.
But
That's right.
yeah, super nice dude. And I think I know where his son got his throwing arm from.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it can't hurt to have a pitcher as a dad.
Yeah.
I'm sure that helped. I know the mechanics are a little different, but that kid's got a cannon. So yeah, and as far as my opinion on this game, I do think that the Jags will ultimately, as David pointed out, I think they're going to get some good experience. I think they're going to get a lot of things to build off of. They're, in my opinion, they're a little bit like the AFC's version of the Lions. In the sense that I think they've got a lot of hype around their young roster. And, it'll be interesting to see what they do next year. But yeah, I don't think they make it past the Chiefs.
Yeah.
I think the percentage or the chance, that they could actually make it past the Chiefs is a very small percentage. As far as the line at 8.5, it is a lot of points and it is a playoff game, but with it being in Kansas City, I think I'm comfortably going to take the Chiefs at -8.5. But again, I could be wrong. We've seen crazier things happen. I mean, look at the Jags in the Chargers game in the wild card round. So we'll see what happens. Next matchup we've got is Giants at Eagles. Currently, the line sits at Eagles -7.5. Which our viewers don't know. What our viewers don't know is that all three of us do happen to be Vikings fans. So we're actually just going to skip this one because the Giants are going to lose by 100. No.
Right.
I think I'll go first on this one, then we'll pitch it over to David. The way I kind of view this game is, and again, I'm trying to let my emotions not play a factor here. I don't think there's a whole lot of chance that the Giants make it past the Eagles. Now, the Eagles have looked mortal over the last, let's say, 3 to 4 games, but they also haven't had Jalen Hurts. And as much as people just want to think it's the rest of the team and the quarterback doesn't matter that much, you might be thinking, who says that? People that are Eagles fans that'll say, well, this still is a great team without Hurts. I think Hurts is a big deal, and they tried to minimize that because obviously they wanted to continue winning games and be competitive. But getting Hurts back to at least as close as they can to 100%. This team is a good team. They should take care of the Giants. I'm taking the Eagles at -7.5. David, what are your thoughts?
I'm taking the Giants.
Oh, really?
I'm taking the Giants because this is a typical Giants team that comes out of nowhere and just gets it done and just beats people. I'm not trying to say that
led by Eli Manning. I mean Daniel Jones.
Exactly. I'm not trying to say that Danny Dimes is Eli Manning, but the way his play was last week with Minnesota, where he was basically, over 70 yards rushing, didn't really make any mistakes. I think this Eagles team can be beat because if you look at them consistently, they don't consistently do the good things all the time in the right moment. And what I'm saying by that is they will they will have a lead and then they will start passing the ball. Miles Sanders is probably a premier back in this league. There's been games where he only had like 5 carries. So I think the way
as a fantasy owner, sir, as a fantasy owner, I am quite aware.
Yeah. I just think that this Giants team is rolling. They're playing with house money, and we have to really think about it too. This is a division game. This is the 3rd time they're going to be playing.
Yep.
And that is extremely hard in the NFL to beat, the same team 3 times in a row. So maybe the Eagles, they might get bounced. I mean, I'm just taking the Giants right now. And I think they're, they might have caught fire and they're rolling right now. I give them the respect.
I'm on the same page as David here, Tony. I'm kind of thinking the Giants are going to be underdogs, obviously, with the 7.5 going to Philly. But yeah, I think the Giants at minimum will cover this spread, and I think Philly's shown some weaknesses the last several weeks. And now I know Jalen Hurts hasn't been healthy for all of those games either, but that Giants defense, I think they did allow some points to the Vikings and yards, obviously, but I think that they got healthier the last week with all of their defensive starters back. I think maybe this week they get into a little bit more of a groove. Mm-hmm. And I think Daniel Jones makes just enough plays against that vaunted Philadelphia defense. And I think the Giants pull out a victory. I really do. Right. One of my upset picks. Hint, hint.
While I respect both of your opinions, you are wrong. No, I think all your takes are great. They're valid. I think the one thing or one last piece I'll add is what I expect to see from the Eagles that we didn't see necessarily from the Vikings was I think that Eagles front 4 is going to be able to get home on
probably
on Daniel Jones.
A little more.
And if you look at what the Vikings did on Sunday, look, we love our Vikings, but boy, Daniel Jones could have set up a tea party back there in the pocket. So I think they're going to get home. They're going to get him flustered. And at the end of the day, I'm sorry, Daniel Jones is still Daniel Jones. You can't convince me otherwise.
One thing I'll say too on the Eagles, quick, Tony, is I do think they will probably play a little bit more press coverage against the Giants than the Vikings did.
I don't know, Carson. I think playing 12 yards off the ball on 3rd and 3 is a good idea.
It's a brilliant strategy. It just didn't work.
All right, next matchup we've got is Bengals at Bills. Bills are currently at -5. Carson, I'm going to punt it over to you for your initial thoughts, and then we'll kind of go around the horn.
Give me Joe Burr. Give me Joe Cool here, boys. I like me some Joe Burrow. I love Josh Allen too, but the Bills showed some vulnerabilities against the Dolphins last week. I think that defense has some holes yet. The Bills' defense, especially after losing Von Miller, their pass rusher. I think that pass rush for the Buffalo defense is not nearly as good when Von Miller's out. Rousseau's a good player, but I think it's easier to double team him when you don't have to worry about Von Miller on the other side. And I think Cincinnati's offensive line will do enough. I think if the Bengals can get past that Bills or that Ravens defense like they did a week ago, I think that this Bills defense doesn't represent quite as big of a challenge, in my opinion. And I think the Bengals defense, whether they get another takeaway like they did on Sunday night last week, or they just are able to stop Josh Allen in the red zone a few times, whatever it may be, I think they come away with some stops. And I think the Cincinnati Bengals are headed to the AFC Championship game.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it very well could be. David, your thoughts on this game?
I'm taking Buffalo. I think the Bills are going to do what they do best. You know, they gotta win this game, but I do think this is going to be a high-scoring game. I do think we're going to see a lot of great quarterback play. We're going to see a lot of nice passes. It's not going to be a defensive game at all. I think Stephon Diggs is going to have a big day. He hasn't had a big day in a couple of weeks. But we do have to think about this too, though. It can either be a high-scoring game or it's going to be a low-scoring emotional game since the last time these guys have played. So we do have to put that, on the table too. How these guys are going to respond when this is the first time they're playing since DeMar Hamlin's injury, and are the Bills are going to be juiced up, or do the Bengals feel like they were slighted because they didn't get the home field advantage because of it, and they were actually winning that game. So this game is going to be full of emotions, but I'm thinking it's going to be a shootout, and I'm going to take the Bills because I feel Josh Allen is going to come on top.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I'm going to take the Bills as well. And again, some of it's emotion.
Keep
I will
doubting Joe Cool. Keep doubting him, boys. Keep doubting him.
I'm going to fully admit that some of this is just based off of emotion. It's hard for me as a Vikings fan to not root for the Bills, our fellow team and franchise fan base that has been to 4 Super Bowls and has
the AFC
no victories.
version of the Vikings.
So exactly. So I'm rooting for the Bills, so my heart's in it, but I do logically think that the Bills should win this game. I think that they should be able to get over the hump and ultimately come out with a victory. I am a little worried about Josh Allen's ability to not have unforced errors, which we've seen certainly over the course of this year. So we'll see what happens. I think if all of a sudden he starts to unravel and we see picks, things could get ugly. But I have faith in the Bills Mafia. I'm on your side.
I got the light blue here, so here we go. But no, if you think about it, Tony and David, isn't Cincinnati kind of like the diet Buffalo, where they've lost 3 Super Bowls, never won one?
I suppose.
But Buffalo has a lot of ex-Vikings over there, so I gotta go there.
It's true. That's true. It would be cool to see Stephon get a ring. Yeah. I do.
Yeah, I want to see Stephon get one.
And they get some nasty winners like we do, so it feels like they're like Vikings light.
Pedialyte.
Yeah, that's right. Next matchup we've got final matchup of the slate this weekend is going to be Cowboys at Niners. Niners are currently at -3.5. I'll start off with this one, and then we'll work to David and then back to Carson. This is a tough one because, in my opinion, I think the Niners have all the ability to stifle the Cowboys. But boy, and look, not to say that Tampa's terrible, but I mean, the Cowboys look pretty legit this last weekend. I think the biggest thing with the Cowboys is going to be consistency, because we've seen games like this out of Dak Prescott, and I feel like I'm channeling my inner Kirk Cousins critic here. But then we've also seen games where it's just like he can't come with it. Dak has an issue where he'll have big games, but then he'll have games where it's like he throws picks, he makes mistakes, he looks off, he looks flat. So I don't know. I think if that defense starts putting some hits on him, it's in San Francisco. I think it might be a tough day for San Francisco, or for Dallas, excuse me. And then of course the $1 million question on the San Francisco side is, can Brock Purdy continue to be this, phenom rookie that's come out of nowhere?
And he remain pretty good?
Well, and the thing is, guys, look, I don't have the stats in front of me. I wish I would have put these together prior to the show. I apologize to all of the fans. But if you look at the statistics since he's taken over, he's not Trent Dilfer. This is not, he's actually leading the offense. His stats look good. He's putting up numbers. He's passing for touchdowns. So it's not like Brock Purdy is just merely managing the offense. Like, their offense is actually functioning. And on top of it, they've got a great defense. So I don't know. I think that San Francisco takes it. I think it's a little bit of disrespect at -3.5. I think they relatively easily cover that 3.5 mark. But again, we'll work over to David. What are your thoughts?
This is actually my game of the week, and I've circled this game. This is a family rivalry, with my family. So I'm going to love this game. I really wish, as a Viking fan, it can end in a tie, but that can't happen. But we need to see which Dak Prescott is going to show up to play. The Dak Prescott that played Monday night is the Dak Prescott that they paid, and it's the future quarterback, franchise quarterback of the Cowboys. He hasn't been playing like that since he came back from injury. You guys, remember a couple of weeks ago, people wanted their backup to come back. So that's what we want to see. But with San Francisco, I really think Frisco, they built their team the right way. And I'm really starting to feel that Shanahan has his Tom Brady. I really think so. Because the way Brock Purdy is playing, he's putting the ball in the right spots. He's not rattled. He's just getting it done. But you can get it done when you build that team the right way to just put any quarterback in the position to succeed. They went and traded for McCaffrey so they can control the ball. And they have a great defense. So I really don't see anybody in the NFC at this point now, beating the Niners. I think they will represent the NFC in the playoffs because of the way that they're built. They can win different ways. They can go over the top with you with Debo and Ayuk, or they can hit the middle with you, with their tight ends, or they can just run the ball down your throat. And Brock Purdy is not making any mistakes. So taking the Niners. I really am. And this really shows how you should build your team as plug and play quarterbacks, because in my opinion, Shanahan's coach of the year. I haven't seen this before. 3 quarterbacks, and it's amazing. It's amazing. The guy you have for the future, Trey Lance, goes down, then the backup goes down. Now you're to Mr. Irrelevant, and he's leading you in the playoffs. You can't beat that.
Sure.
David,
Carson,
David, you and I talked about this in our group chat with all 3 of us about how we thought that Tampa Bay was going to beat Dallas on Monday night, right? We thought, classic Tom Brady, everybody's doubting him. He rises from the ashes yet again and puts out a great playoff performance and takes the Buccaneers to the divisional round of the playoffs. Well, it wasn't to be, and Dak Prescott played the game of his life. No joke. He played the best game of his career. Considering the circumstances, considering everything that all the doubts surrounding Dallas, which is a whole nother debate. Mike McCarthy, is he going to be fired if they lose to Tampa Bay? Kind of going to be a little harder to fire him now, right? Maybe not. But anyways, I think this is a very, very good game this week, and I agree with you, David. I think this is one of the games of the week, but I think all four of these games could be really good.
Mm-hmm.
But this one, to me, seems like it is very even on paper because both teams have good offensive lines and both teams have good defensive lines. And I think this is a very even matchup. I would say San Francisco definitely has the edge in the weapons department as a whole. But Dallas is very comparable. They've got a really explosive running back in Tony Pollard. They have the thunder, if you will, to Pollard's lightning in Ezekiel Elliott, which obviously he's kind of been wearing down a little bit the last couple of years, but still has the ability to check in for Pollard at times. And, I like what Brock Purdy's done. He's been, as people have been saying, anything but irrelevant since he's taken over the starting job for San Francisco. And I do think, we've talked about this too, David, where I think that Kyle Shanahan, just based on what he's done, he's had to work with 3 quarterbacks this year, Trey Lance at the beginning, Jimmy Garoppolo, and now what he's done with Brock Purdy, I think is just outstanding. I think he is coach of the year just based on the fact that they're here, but I am going with the Cowboys in this matchup. I think that Micah Parsons and that pass rush is going to get home and cause some distress that Brock Purdy hasn't yet faced this season. And I think he's going to not necessarily totally melt down, but I think he's going to crumble a little bit under the pressure, literally and figuratively, of this game. And I think Micah Parsons has a nice day. I think they're going to try everything in their power to line him up on whatever side that Trent Williams won't be, which would be the right side, unless they decide to move him to the right side to fool the defense, which I've never seen that. Which would be interesting, but don't think that'll ever happen. But anyways, I'm taking the Cowboys, and I feel like I'm Skip Bayless right now, but
You do know the Cowboys have Xavier Rhodes, right?
That's right, Xavier Rhodes.
There's going to be a lot of
touchdown
passes in him.
It's a lock. It's a lock. Xavier Rhodes is going to lock down whoever he has. No, I will say I think that the secondary could be a weak spot, but I don't know if Brock Purdy is going to be able to overcome it enough, the defensive line and all that. But so I'm going Dallas. We'll see what happens.
Quick question though. Side note on this game: if Brock Purdy does win this game and goes to the NFC title game, what do the Niners do in the offseason?
You got to roll with them, don't you?
But you traded everything for Trey Lance.
I think you go with the hot hand, and then Trey Lance basically becomes trade bait.
Because Garoppolo's contract is up, so he is a free agent.
He can walk.
Yep.
Right.
So I think you have to pick one or the other. The nice thing is that they have the ability to basically bench Purdy if they wanted to, because he's under contract. But if you're Purdy and you're like, oh, they're going to put me under Trey Lance again, it's like, maybe I want to go somewhere else now. The Minnesota Vikings, perhaps, to be the backup to Kirk Cousins and take the reins over in 2024, perhaps. But that's another story for another podcast. But I think the Cowboys win this game. I think the veteran quarterback gets it done, and like I said, I think that pass rush for Dallas is going to have a nice day. Might not be all that flashy, but I think it's going to cause some havoc for Brock Purdy.
Yeah, I think that's a great take there, Carson. We do have some additional storylines for this week. So as we kind of head into the weekend, we start talking about obviously the playoffs, but we're also starting to talk about the offseason for many of the teams that are either in the playoffs, who obviously lost last week, RIP Vikings, or teams that didn't make the playoffs at all. Certainly, they're all looking.
Funeral services will be held at a later date.
That's right.
And on another podcast.
You can send your donations to the again Flea Flicker Fancast donation bucket for all of our sorrows. But here, we're going to talk a little bit about, again, some off-season headlines heading into this week. The first one being some potential landing spots for Aaron Rodgers. One of the interviews that I don't know if you, either of you, consumed, I saw his regular spot that he does with Pat McAfee, and he mentioned that potentially Green Bay wasn't the right fit, that he would look for the right fit for him this offseason, and interluded to the fact that that might not be Green Bay. It could be somewhere else than the Packers. So I'm gonna kind of maybe punt it over to Carson first on this one. What are your thoughts on Rodgers? Do you think he retires? Do you think he comes back to the Packers, or do you think he finds a home somewhere else? And if so, where do you think he could potentially go?
That quote from Rodgers, the idea that he could still win an MVP and him saying, I don't know if it's in Green Bay or not, that leads me to believe if he thinks he could still do that he's not going to retire. I think there is some senses where with some people, it's like, I want to go out knowing I could still continue to play instead of I don't want to retire when I know, okay, I can't do this anymore kind of a feeling. So there's two different mindsets, but I think Rodgers' ego just tells me, all right, he's coming back and he wants to prove the doubters wrong and all this. I just think he's got that big ego and he wants to do it. And honestly, if I'm Green Bay, I want to keep him because I know there's a lot of Packer fans that are like, oh, Jordan Love, I love this guy, no pun intended, but you know what? What are the odds that Green Bay strikes gold 3 times in a row? Like, just tell me that. Like, even if Jordan Love is okay, like, is he going to be Aaron Rodgers level, Hall of Fame level? Like, I don't think so. I really don't. I think Jordan Love could be an average-ish starting quarterback, but I really have a hard time believing that he's going to be going to a Hall of Fame ceremony other than just as a spectator at some point in the future. But who knows?
Who knows?
Speaking
David,
of potential landing spots, I guess I should maybe throw in if he's not gonna stay in Green Bay. I would say the best, in my opinion, landing spot for him, even though there's no offensive coordinator there right now, is the New York Football Jets. I love that landing spot for Aaron Rodgers. He's got young receivers, which that could also be a problem, by the way. And he also has a really good defense over there, coached by Robert Saleh, who I think is a really, really good coach on the defensive side. So I don't know if I like the idea of firing LaFleur from the offensive coordinator, Mike LaFleur, their offensive coordinator there, but I do like the idea of Rodgers. If I'm Rodgers, going to the Jets, obviously you have to throw in the Raiders because Devontae, but I think the Jets is my number one pick for him.
Sure. Yeah. I think that's a solid choice. So I could see the Jets happening for sure. David, what are your thoughts on the Rodgers drama / saga?
I think the Rodgers drama / saga is actually should be called the race to Vegas, because I think both quarterbacks were number 12. I think him and Brady are trying to align themselves to go to Vegas. And if you think about it, Brady wants to go to Vegas because they have the most weapons, and Josh McDaniels is over there, which he's way more familiar with than anybody else. Rodgers wants to go to Vegas because of the weapons and his familiarity with Devontae Adams. So I think everything that Rodgers is saying in the media, he's just trying to make himself available. That's all it is. He's pretty much done in Green Bay. He wants one more crack at it, and I think it's the race to Vegas for both of those quarterbacks, in my opinion. I think it's going to pan out, and I think whichever ball drops first is going to figure out where Rodgers is going to go. If the thing about it is Brady is a free agent. He can go anywhere he wants to go. They have to negotiate something for Rodgers to go to Vegas or Rodgers to go to the Jets. Brady doesn't have to do that. He can walk wherever he wants to go. So I think once that first domino drops with Brady, that's going to tell you where Rodgers is going to go. Or he might just retire and do Jeopardy. Who knows? Or do ayahuasca for the rest of his life, whatever. Who knows?
He's just going to be in a hut
right
doing
off in the sunset.
hallucinogenics.
Yeah, but that's just honestly what I think it is. I think both of these guys are racing for Vegas because Vegas is ready. They have the talent on offense. They have the
don't have the
pieces.
Coach though. I'm not convinced McDaniels is the right option.
I'm not convinced with the coach, but hey, Tom Brady won a championship in Tampa Bay.
It's true. And he won a championship with Josh McDaniels, didn't he?
Exactly.
Or multiple?
Why not go there? Why not?
I would assume multiple. Yeah. I would assume multiple. Yeah, my take on this is I think it's a little posturing. I think he's done this before where he kind of hems and haws about what he's planning on doing. It gives him leverage. It makes, I think in his own way, he probably feels like it forces the Green Bay front office to try to put together a team that's more attractive for him, whether that's spending money in free agency or just focusing more on the offensive side of the ball. So I don't know. I don't know what to think. Part of me feels like he's probably going to end up back in Green Bay because to what your point is, David, is that he's not an unrestricted free agent. And a lot of the teams that I think make a lot of sense are in the NFC. And I just don't see Green Bay shipping him off to a team that he's going to want to go to. And that is probably going to be a contender as is. It just, I don't see him go because the team that I personally think would be a suitor for Rodgers, and this is going to sound crazy because we just talked about this team and the quarterback situation. He's going home to the 49ers.
Line and gold.
Yeah, he would go home back to Cali, be on the 49ers and that Shanahan offense. We know that would be just a ridiculous setup with that offense. And at the end of the day, they cut bait with Purdy, use him as trade bait because he's, Mr. Irrelevant. I highly doubt any of his contract isn't something they could just, cut or anybody else would love to absorb just in the off chance that this guy could develop into a franchise quarterback. And then Lance gets the benefit of essentially sitting behind Rodgers for, a couple of years at least, because they assume Rodgers is going to come in and, helm that team for at least 2 years. So I think the 49ers make the most sense, but I don't think it's going to happen. So I think he ends up back in Green Bay. We have to deal with him for yet another season as Vikings fans. My Vikings, I bring on the Jordan Love era. That's what I say.
So Carson, you said Rodgers to the Jets. David. So Carson, you said Rodgers to the Jets, right?
That is correct.
Isn't that where Favre went and then came to the Vikings? Are you trying to?
I'm setting it up, baby. I'm setting it up. No, I don't want it to happen. I really don't want Rodgers. I often usually try to keep the personal side out of it when I talk about players, but I do not like him as a person. I don't think he's that good of a person. And I think he could very well be toxic for a locker room. For some of those younger players, if the Vikings bring in another rookie receiver, in the next year or two and Rodgers is here and doesn't show up till regular season game week 1 for the game plan, then it's like, well, good luck building that chemistry, bud. Yeah. So I don't really want Rodgers. But I mean, if you take away the personal aspect of it and you take away the off the field stuff and maybe the locker room toxicity, if you will, I mean, talent wise, of course I would love to have Rodgers, right? Yeah. But it is definitely trending in that direction for sure. If obviously if he goes to the Jets, but
for sure. And really, David already interluded to this next point, which is Tom Brady. You know, he's another guy, unlike Rodgers, is a free agent where he can kind of pick and choose where he wants to go. He's not tied down by a contract. You know, where does Tom Brady go next year? I mean, look, I think David has a point. I think that the Raiders might be a good landing spot. He does have familiarity with Josh McDaniels. I think if I'm Tom Brady, though, the only thing I'm worried about is looking at this team and the way it kind of imploded at some point. I mean, look, he's too old to deal with a crap season like Derek Carr dealt with this year. And I get that he's going to have the confidence to say, well, that's not going to happen with me. But let's be realistic. It almost kind of did with Tampa Bay. They weren't great this year. They barely made the playoffs. So he'd be going from a team that barely made the playoffs to a team that kind of looked like a dumpster fire at times that was supposed to be so good. So I don't know. I mean, you trade, Goodwin and Evans for Devontae. I don't know if that's much of an upgrade. I think the Raiders make sense, but I don't know if he pulls the trigger just based on the caliber of team that he might feel like the Raiders are at. My dark horse in all this, and I know that the rumors have been swirling about this, my dark horse in the Brady auction will be Miami. I think the way that things ended with Tua and the up in the air nature of his health, and don't get me wrong, as a football fan, I want to see Tua out there, but just as a person, if he can't go and it's better for his health to not play football again, as much as that stinks, that should be the most important thing. And honestly, he might make that decision just the way this year went. So if that happens, I could see him making the Florida jump from Tampa Bay to Miami. And boy, then that roster is crazy attractive. So that's I'm going to go with Miami with the asterisk of it depends on what happens with Tua. So David, we'll start with you and then we'll head over to Carson.
Yeah, I just feel like Tom Brady is going to pick the right situation for him, and he wants to win. I mean, I didn't think he was going to win in Tampa Bay, but you never should count out Tom Brady. I mean, Miami is a great landing spot with their weapons, and the thing about that too is they actually play the Patriots 2 times a year. So he would love to stick it to Belichick 2 times a year, you know, if he went to Miami. And the thing about the Raiders too, my father's a big Raider fan, and I asked him, like, would you accept Tom Brady as your quarterback, because they're still mad about the Tuck rule. So if Tom Brady goes to the Raiders, all these Raider fans who's been hating Tom Brady this whole time they're gonna love him, because he's gonna bring a winning culture to the Raiders, and they haven't had a winning culture in about 20, 30 years. I mean, I just think Tom Brady at this point now, he's not going to make the same mistakes he made previous years with making a decision so quick. He's going to wait his things out. He's going to wait, you know, the free agency. He's going to wait to see, you know, where the draft pick land and just pick the best landing spot for him. Me, in my opinion, I feel like there's nothing left to play for. No one's going to touch any of your records at all. You're the greatest quarterback of all time. Like, just walk away. And the last thing I want to see is him to get hit hard and to see Tom Brady end up like Tua, where he has to be forced away from this game. I don't want to see that. So,
yeah. So what you're saying, David, is you don't want to see his career end like when we saw Favre's head bounce off the frozen TCF Bank turf.
Yeah, I don't.
And that was the end of that legacy right there.
Yeah. I just want him to ride off in the sunset. I mean, you're 45 years old, man. You have all the records. There's no disputing that you're the greatest of all time. Just walk away, man. Just walk away.
Carson, what do you think?
All right, are you ready for this? So I have got the odds pulled up from VSIN.com. Never heard of it until today, but that means it's very credible. And the odds for where Tom Brady will land, the first 5. the Raiders plus 150, the Buccaneers plus 300, San Francisco plus 350, which is another possibility, Miami 750, and the New England Patriots plus 750. He's going back to New England. All is forgiven there, Belichick. All is forgiven. Robert Kraft, they're still friends. No, I don't think Tom Brady's ego will let him go back there. But maybe, I don't know. Here's what I'll say about Miami. If I'm Tom Brady, I would tell the Dolphins, and who knows if that would even be a possibility with all the tampering things that came out of Miami. But I would tell Miami, if you want me to be your quarterback, you fix that offensive line, because there is some holes on that offensive line, major holes. And if I'm a 46-year-old quarterback when the next season starts, I don't want an offensive line that's going to be shaky in parts. And I think one of their weak spots is a guard position. And we know that Tom Brady, one of his weaker points throughout his career has been pressure up the middle, which most quarterbacks struggle with that. Mm-hmm. But Tom Brady, that's one of his things that he doesn't like. And I would say that would be my statement from Tom Brady. If I was him, say, hey, I'll come here. You fix that offensive line. But no, I honestly think I just seeing these odds, maybe the New England Patriots are in the mix for Tom Brady. And I don't think they're committed to Mac Jones. I really don't. No. I think Mac Jones could easily be traded. There's a lot of quarterback needy teams out there. They also have Bailey Zappi, who could sit under Tom Brady for a year maybe or two, depending on how long Brady comes back, which who knows, he might play till he's dead at this point. But my dad always used to say he could picture Brett Favre throwing touchdown passes out of a wheelchair. So who knows? Maybe Brady will do that. But I think New England can't be totally ruled out, but I think Vegas makes sense, and I think San Francisco makes sense as well. Like I said with my San Francisco predictions, where I think Dallas goes in there and wins. Maybe Shanahan says, you know what, we need that quarterback to put us over the top. Let's go get ourselves Tom Brady.
I think they're going after Kirk Cousins. I'm just kidding. I think.
You like that?
Yeah. I don't disagree with your takes at all. I do think that, New England would be an interesting one. It would remind me a bit of LeBron going back to Cleveland. The only thing is with LeBron coming back to Cleveland, it was, he felt bad that at least he said he felt bad, but it was his hometown and he wasn't able to win a championship. So I think it'd be a little different. He's given New England a lot of championships. And I don't think his ego does allow him to go back there, as I know one of you already stated, because I think his mode or the kind of overarching theme for him leaving New England was that he felt like he didn't need New England, and he was tired of the narrative that it was Belichick that made Tom Brady. And he wanted to say, no, it's the other way around. Tom Brady made Bill Belichick. And, of course, we know that it's probably somewhere in the middle where they just complemented each other well. So, yep. All right, last topic that we have today on this particular show is Sean Payton. Speaking of illegal tampering, I'm just salty. I'm salty since the 2009 NFC Championship game, if no one noticed.
Thanks,
I'm
Greg
Williams. Yeah, I'm going to throw my 2 cents in here, and then we'll go over to David, finish up with Carson, then we'll call it a wrap today. But boy, if I look at where Sean Payton's going to go, I'm not going to give you multiple options, because I think there's one team that seems like the natural fit, and there's already been some rumors swirling that he is on the docket for this particular team, and that is the Arizona Cardinals. I think that he makes sense to go to Arizona. I think the way that franchise is probably looking at Sean Payton is that he is an adult. He has coached adult players like Drew Brees, and he has respect around the league because he's done some things. He's won a Super Bowl. He's had, as much as I don't like it, a lot of winning seasons. And I think that their thought, I'm not saying it's right, but their thought might be that he is the key to getting Kyler on a more consistent path with his play, maybe even with his preparation. We don't know. Lots of obviously talking points around that. So I think he makes sense in Arizona, and ultimately I think that's where he lands. So David, where do you think Sean Payton is going to be putting the headset on next year?
Denver Broncos. I think he goes to Denver Broncos, but if he's trying to build his staff, he can't take Fangio with him. So that's kind of like holding that up to kind of figure out what his coaching staff is going to look like. I think he wants to stay away from Kyler because I think Kyler is starting to become a little toxic. And I think he can kind of go ahead and fix what's broken with Russell Wilson. And they already have a defense that can actually play after they traded a lot of players. He can actually go in there in Denver and contend with Kansas City on winning that title, the AFC West title every year. I think that's the best fit for him. But I think what's holding it up is he wants to take a guy with him that's going to, build a defense and have a good defense on the other side. And it can't be Fangio because they just fired him a couple of years ago. So that's after that. If he doesn't go to Denver, I think he sits for another year until that Dallas job comes up.
Like in that Dallas job, over in Jerry World, that would be something. That's for sure.
Right. That's right.
Carson, what do you think?
Yeah, this is an interesting one. If it wasn't for such a bad ownership group, and I'm not so sure I'm sold on the GM, I wouldn't mind him going to Houston. I think that the situation there is nice because you have a really nice young core, and you still have the ability, Sean Payton does, to get a quarterback. And he can get whoever he wants pretty much because the Texans are probably going to – I haven't looked at their cap space, but I'm guessing they're going to have pretty good cap space, and they're also going to have a top the second pick in the draft, so whoever the Bears don't take, or maybe they just swap picks with the Bears if they wanted to trade up and get Bryce Young or whoever they wanted to pick up, if it's CJ Stroud, whatever. I like that situation for Peyton from that regard, but I think the fact that it's not a well-run organization would lead me away from there. But I do like that. And then I think Denver, like you said, David, I think that's a good spot for him. I think the fact that the defense is already in place and that's not his specialty, where he's an offensive guy, I think that makes it much more attractive to me as a coach. If I'm an offensive guy that leans offense, I would probably be excited to go to Denver. But again, this all goes back to the Saints here too, guys. We maybe don't remember that, but they are asking for, at minimum, a first-round pick in the price tag for Sean Payton. And not only that, but Sean Payton is supposedly asking for, 10 to 15 million or maybe even more dollars per year. And that's a lot of money to pay a coach. And let's not forget, the last time Sean Payton was even in a conference championship game, that's been over a decade ago.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying he's a bad coach or anything, but I think that's a big asking price. And I think if I'm Carolina, I'm sticking with Steve Wilkes. I think he deserves the opportunity. And I think if they bring in an offensive coach that can help a young quarterback there or a veteran quarterback, Derek Carr, maybe a good landing spot for them. I really think Carolina is finally going to just draft a guy because they've been going with this veteran mindset the last few years, and they're probably just ready to move on. But that's another topic for another day on another episode of the Flea Flicker Fancast.
Very good. I like
Yeah,
it.
it's gonna be real interesting. It's just kind of weird this offseason. You got Sean Payton, who's actually commentating games and is actually a media personality right now, and he's in the back, pulling strings. It will be kind of crazy to see wherever Payton goes, they don't have a quarterback. What if he convinces Tom Brady to come play for him for a year while they develop a quarterback in the background? All these possibilities are on the table, and that's why the NFL offseason is so great, because you don't know what's going to happen. These guys are just making moves in the background, and it's always going to be a big surprise to us. So, but I'm just thinking, at the end of the day, if it's not Denver, he's going to sit for another year.
If that Chargers job would have come open, I would have gone. I would have ran. I would have taken the money and ran if I was Sean Payton.
And that's the thing too, though. Just like you said, the Saints hold the cards because they have to make a trade, and I don't think the Saints give him to an NFC contending team, because that means they're not going to do that. They're not going to trade him to
especially not to the NFC South Panthers. Yeah,
they're not going to do that. They're going to want to put him as far away as possible. So
what you're saying is that it's going to be Sean Payton and Tom Brady leading the Indianapolis Colts.
Ooh, that'd be interesting.
No, Brady has so much of an ego.
He wants to go to the house that Manning built and be better.
Yeah, exactly. Too funny.
Too much of ego for that one. No.
Yeah.
But it's interesting.
Well,
this is NFL offseason.
Yes, yeah. I am here for it. I love talking this stuff. It's my time to shine here, folks.
There you
go.
love
it. I love it.
Well, speaking of NFL offseason news and certainly predictions as we move through the playoffs, make sure to join us in any future episodes where we'll preview again more games as we get into the or past the divisional weekend and into the championship weekend. So certainly stick around. Anything news noteworthy we're going to cover here on the Flea Flicker Fancast. So again, thank you so much for joining us on the first ever episode. Please make sure to like and subscribe. It certainly helps the channel, as well as leaving some comments. We'll do our best to respond to your comments. We love the engagement. We get very lonely. So please comment on the podcast. We want to hear your opinions. I certainly am going to respond to all of the comments that say I was right. So make sure to do that and follow us for more content. Thanks again, everybody. And we'll certainly catch you on the next one.